Welcome everybody and thank you all for attending. Robin, thank you for the efforts behind the scenes to rally some of your colleagues and things. We're excited to have you taking opticianry in Ontario, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of you at student nights and things, and it was interesting to hear that you may not have been completely informed about the college's PLAR process, which is an alternate pathway to seek licensure in Ontario. One is through the accredited school path that you're taking or enrolled in right now. The other thing is for those who are foreign trained professionals, there's a PLAR process, the prior learning assessment and recognition process, that allows you to have your previous schooling and learning assessed and recognized, possibly to get you a shorter and faster path to the licensing exam. And so I know that there's a number of questions and things like that. So Anna's prepared a presentation to give you, and then we hope to field your questions after that. It's a very casual session here, so feel free to ask whatever questions you want, and then we can do any follow-up afterwards. So Anna, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Fazal. Yeah, Emma. So as I said, this session today is meant to introduce you to the prior learning assessment and recognition process, which is the path for registration with the College for Internationally Trained Opticians. So we have a couple of slides here that would demonstrate some aspects of the program, and then we will open the floor to questions, and we really hope that we will be able to help you today in addressing your questions and concerns and set you on the right path for whatever you would like to pursue with the profession. So as Fazal mentioned, the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition Program is an alternate pathway to registration as an optician in Ontario and in Canada in general. The standard pathway would be a completion of an accredited Canadian program or an approved Canadian program. In Ontario, there are three programs. One is at Seneca College at Georgian, another one is at Georgian College, and there is also a newer program that is delivered in French in Ottawa at La Cité College. Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition, or PLAR in short, is an assessment of your education and work experience to determine if you become eligible for national examinations. The national examinations, as you know, is the final piece in completing your journey in becoming a registered optician. First, it's the educational piece, then challenging the national exams, and with the success in that, you will become eligible to register as an optician. Now, PLAR is a substitute for the educational piece. If you bring your educational piece from elsewhere, you will be able to challenge this process through PLAR and then determine where you stand in terms of your educational comparison to the Canadian credential, and then if you are prescribed to complete the programs, a bridging program, you will be then eligible to challenge the exam. And that applies equally to Canadian trained applicants. You will be sitting the exams together with the graduates of accredited programs. And the PLAR determines whether the applicant's knowledge and skill meets the requirements of the core competencies of the profession. So just as I said, this is a substitute to the educational credential that is received at an accredited institution. So with that, I'll pass it on to Emma, who will discuss the eligibility and what you need to submit to apply for the PLAR process.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everyone. So you might already know a little bit about the eligibility to apply for the PLAR process. Essentially, as an internationally trained optician or optometrist, there's a couple different kind of categories you could fall under. So if you've completed education related to opticianry outside of Canada, you may be eligible, and that can include completing programs in optometry, as may be the case for some of you. Or if you have practiced opticianry outside of Canada and you're licensed or registered with a jurisdiction outside of Canada that allows you to practice opticianry, so dispensing eyeglasses, contact lenses. So if you fall into that category and you want to apply, some of the documents that we need, there's the application form to complete. Along with that, there's a form that looks at your dispensing experience, so the verification of dispensing experience form, where you can record any experience that you already have in dispensing eyeglasses and contact lenses. And if it's the case that you obtained that experience outside of Canada, we do accept international experience or domestic experience. If it was completed outside Canada, you'll need to also provide additional confirmation, just verifying the hours. So that can either be a solemn declaration, so that's something that you would get before a lawyer or a notary public, verifying that the hours were completed. Or if you're able to obtain a letter of employment on company letterhead from the company or companies where you obtained the experience. You'll also need to submit an up-to-date resume that details your opticianry-related experience, a copy of your transcripts and degree or diploma for any opticianry-related education. And again, as in most of your cases, it'll be international experience. And in that case, you also need to provide a World Education Services, so WES credential assessment. And if you do have licensure or registration in another jurisdiction, you'll need to provide proof of that as well.
Just to add one more thing. If your program was not completed in English, you would also need to provide proof of language proficiency.
Yes, thanks for that. And all of that information can be found on our website. So that's collegeofopticians.ca. And it's just under the tab marked applicants, unaccredited education applicant. We also wanted to note, so you may have noticed we don't request at this stage notarized confirmation of your employment eligibility in Canada. So that's because you can complete the PLAR process without having Canadian employment eligibility. Essentially, the whole process, the assessment, the application can be done remotely. So some people do it internationally. So you don't necessarily need to have employment eligibility at that stage. But very important to note that you will need to have Canadian employment eligibility to be eligible to register as an intern with the college. And just the process of having the assessment done, so going through the PLAR process doesn't automatically make you eligible for Canadian employment. So you'll need to make sure that you're taking care of that aspect of it as well. Okay, and I will pass it back to Anna to discuss the steps for registration and the assessment process.
Thank you, Emma. So the first step is to submit the application package and all the supporting documents, as Emma mentioned. So once your submission is complete and received, we will review your application, and if everything checks off, you will be approved to proceed with the PLAR assessment. We are obligated under the law to provide you with 30 days in case you want to make any additional submissions to your file. And once that time period is up, you're cleared to proceed with the actual assessment. The assessment is done by NACOR, the National Alliance of Opticianry Regulators. It's an independent body, independent of the college. And the results are also scored by that organization, not by the college, but the results are provided to the college in form of a scorecard. And the results then are forwarded to the registration committee to review. And I'll talk about that process in my next slide and in a bit more detail. So the committee reviews the results of your assessment, and based on that, they determine what the next steps would be for you. If all criteria are met, you will be eligible to proceed with the intern registration. But in some instances where the competences were below the expected level, you may be prescribed to complete bridging courses. We can move on, Emma, with the next slide. So what the process entails, sorry, I was a bit ahead of myself. The process of assessment, as it stands today, entails an interview and a written assessment. So the written part is a multiple choice exam, and you have 3 to 4 hours to complete that exam. And the second part of the assessment is an interview. So you're interviewed by a panel. It's usually 2 interviewers that are registered opticians. And also we have some observers who sit in for transparency to ensure that that process is conducted fairly and transparently. Your results are scored separately and then combined into the scorecard. And then you come out with the overall outcome. Which means that you may do better in one area and worse in the other, but then, you know, one area could balance another. I mean, you're tested, the competency is tested through the multiple choice and interview. So if you do a little bit worse, let's say in the written, you can make up in the interview and the other way around. So anyway, there are 3 potential outcomes of the assessment. So the competency could be above the level, at the level, or below the level. So if you score below the level, then you will be prescribed a bridging course. If you score at or above the level, obviously above the level, you will not get any courses. At the level, you may be recommended to complete optional courses. But this is all completely under the committee's discretion. It's a panel of professional members. They review your file in its entirety. They review your whole submission. It's not just based on your exam, but they look at your submission as a whole, and then they make a determination which would be in your best interest. Now, completion of bridging courses is also done through NACOR. So there are modules developed by NACOR to bridge any gaps that are identified through the assessment. So those courses are done online. They're not done at the academic institution, which is very convenient because they could be done at your own pace, and the start date is flexible. They're free also, but there is a fee of $100 that is associated with the completion of the exit test. So basically, the validation of completion would be your successful completion of the exit test, and there is a certain pass score that is assigned to it. Once that's done, we receive the results from NACOR, and if everything is aligned, then you are eligible to proceed with your registration as an intern. So this concludes our overview of the process, and I would like to open the floor to questions.
All right, can I go first?
Sure.
So you talked about the employment eligibility, right? So what is that like? Because right now we are in Canada and we all are on study permit. So does that mean that we have to like get an employment eligibility again like to do all the process?
Um,
Because this process should have been done while we were in India, right? And now since we came here to do the program, the opportunity program, we are on our study permit. So what will happen to our study permit then?
So I can't really speak to the immigration matters. I'm not sure if, let's say, you came on a study permit and then you decide to switch the program, right? I'm not sure to what extent it would compromise your study permit. However, a standard study permit allows you to work with some limitations. I believe it's up to 20 hours that you can do off campus. You have to refer to the terms of your permit. So so that is done in mind that you can complete your co-op. So with the student permit, yes, you can work. And you can, for the purposes of the registration as an intern, you can register as an intern. But then once you transition into a fully licensed optician, you should get like a, what would be in your case, a postgraduate work permit. Now, how that is going to evolve your current student permit, study permit into the postgraduate, I cannot speak to that because it's strictly an immigration matter. And I think it would be appropriate that you speak with an immigration consultant.
All right. And my second question is like, how long will this whole process take? Like if I start from, let's say tomorrow, if I start documenting and everything, so how long will it take for the whole process?
I think the lengthiest part in this process is putting together your application package. Since you need to obtain your documents from the country where you completed your education, that may take some time. If the documents need to be translated into English and they have not been translated yet, that will take more time. Also, the WES assessment, they have their own timelines. Usually, I think it's from 4 to 8 weeks, but it also depends because those transcripts have to go to WES directly from your educational institution. If they're quick, obviously the process will be quicker. Also, the language testing additional piece, if your program was not in English, you need to take an English test, will also take some time. I would say the lengthiest part is, yes, like, putting all these documents together, submitting to the college. Once they're submitting, assuming that everything is complete and you provided every single piece of information that you should, then you have that 30-day time period to have any additional submissions. And after that, it goes for the assessment. So the assessment usually is scheduled within a month or so. I would say, but again, it depends on the individual circumstances. Some people want to do them back to back. Some people want to space them out. If you want to do both within the same month, it's possible. And then after that, it probably takes about 10 business days for them to score it. And we then receive the results and it goes forward to the registration committee.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And I guess there are some questions in the chat.
And are you seeing the questions in the chat?
Yes.
Do you want me to read it?
No, I can read it. So I have a question here. If I complete the assessment before my study permit expires, will that affect my work permit? As due to the 2 years course, we get 3 years of work permit. Will that change? I can't speak to that because, as you just mentioned, this is a condition that postgraduate is a condition of completion your 2-year diploma. If you sort of shortcut and pull out of the program, I'm not sure how that would impact your eligibility to obtain a work permit. And again, it's best to address this question ahead of time with an immigration consultant because it's a very important piece. One of the criteria is language proficiency. If I don't have my IELTS in 2020, according to IELTS, the validity is 2 years. In that case, it got expired. Do I need to write it again? Yes. But there are also a number of other tests other than IELTS. We have a language proficiency policy on the website. in the policy section, you can just refer to the criteria that is set out in the table, and there's a variety to choose from. You don't have to do IELTS if you don't want to.
And drop that one in the chat.
Okay, so most of us, we have already given our IELTS, since that is a requirement to obtain a study permit. And I just checked on the website. It is mentioned that for the IELTS score, you accept 7 bands. Is that correct? It's
Yes,
written
for IELTS?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that 7 band overall, or in each module, like listening, speaking, writing, and as that, or like overall 7 bands?
It's overall.
Overall, okay, got it.
I have another question here. As my college don't provide the eyeglass fits and all the records are not there, is there any way we can submit that document as it's a parameter for this? Hiro, could you please clarify?
So the thing is that other colleges provide the record, as when I had a chat with Fazal, he said that you need this many eyeglass fits and contact lens fit to, you know, they are required for this. And as I have a degree of optometry, however, our college don't provide such kind of records. I have a degree, but I don't have specific records of how many contact lens or eyeglass fits I have done in India. So is there any way I can enter it the or I can, and is there any document that I can get from my college to enter in this one?
Did you work in India?
Yeah, I did work in India.
So just as Emma mentioned, it could be a letter of employment on the letterhead, like official, saying that you worked at this place and you dispensed, just verifying it that way. Another way is also to making a declaration. So basically what it is, you go to a notary public or a lawyer or a commissioner of oaths, and you make a statement saying that I attest that I, at this institution during this time, I completed all these fits, and this information is true and accurate. And then you sign, and they kind of witness it, and they also attest to it. They put their seal and signature on it.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, and so I have one more question, and this is like the most important one. So like most of us, we are from India, and we were optometrists in India, but in India, there is not any official board that like provides us a license or some kind of registration number. There's no board in India for optometrists. There's just one council. It's called Optometry Council of India, but it does not provide us any registration number or anything, and it's not even mandatory. So how do we go over that? Like, because there is a requirement, you need the license or registration number, maybe.
If you're not registered, if you were not required to register with the board to practice, then it's not necessary for you to provide it. Because if you have your degree, the committee will consider you on the basis of that degree. And if that degree was the basis for you to be able to practice as an optometrist in India, that's fine. If your registration wasn't mandatory for that. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, some countries, they have sort of like an apprenticeship system for opticianry. You could pick up that the qualifications kind of as an apprentice, and that then get licensed with your board. So that's another way. Some people do have the degree, and but they're not required to get licensed to practice in their countries. And some people don't have like a formal education for optician, but they're required to get licensed. So that is a qualifying factor. But if you have a degree and we're not required to be licensed to practice your profession in India, you don't have to provide that information.
So we need to write a letter explaining that, right?
On the form, it says, have you been licensed? And you just say no.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we receive quite a few applications from India, so the committee is pretty aware of licensure not being required.
Oh, okay. So you get students from India, like those who are doing this PLAR?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So good. So there's one more question in the chat box, I guess. It just came.
If we work as a student optician in Canada, we will be doing contact lens fitting and eyeglass fitting here. Will that experience takes into consideration? Yes. Yeah. So there is a form for that, which your supervisor will fill out and sign. And they enter, it's designed to enter the specified number of fits. Yes, that can be considered.
Okay, and as Hiral was saying that we did work in India, but in India, like our employer, they do not record our hours or what fittings and contact lens fittings that we do. So when I talked to my employer over there, that because I needed the documents for this PLAR system, and he said that I cannot actually write your hours. How many hours did you work? I can write your start date and end date, but not your working hours, because I didn't supervise you for your hours. And he didn't even supervise me for how many fittings that I did or contact lens fittings that I did. So is that mandatory? Like, do we really need to provide the hours, or will that work if we provide the start date and end date of the employment? He said he can mention the job duties, like what we used to do and everything, but he cannot write how many fittings or contact lens or eyeglass fittings that we did, because he did not supervise us. That's why.
But did you perform those fittings and did you do dispensing?
Yes, we definitely did.
So as I said, the solemn declaration would be then a substitute for that. This is a legal document, and you make an attestation to something that that you actually performed. You swear that this take an oath that this information is true and accurate. And so if at any given time one who made that statement, then it has been found that this information has not been accurate, then the person who submitted that information would be held accountable for not submitting truthful information. So yes, if in reality you perform those duties in that setting, then you can make a sworn declaration that yes, I did it during this period of time at this place, and that would be considered. But it obviously has to reflect the reality.
Okay, got it.
Fazal, do you have anything to add to it?
I think that's the question that had come up. Robin and I had spoken about it as well, about not necessarily having exact matches for our list of requirements. And that's why I was encouraging this discussion to talk about, what are substitutes. So, obviously we, and it sounds like, Emma, we've had applicants from India who have not gone through the Canadian accredited program, but directly to us. So can you maybe share a little bit of experience, what that's resulted in? Typically, like what kind of bridging, or how many are they successful, apples to apples?
It really depends a lot on the person, because some people, it may have been some time since they've been practicing, other people have practiced more recently. Some people have just obtained their degree and might not have as much experience dispensing as someone else. So yeah, I think a lot of it depends on the work experience. Yeah, typically, we do see like some kind of bridging assigned in most of the cases, and it just varies the amount of bridging that people are required to do. And I will say, like in some cases as well, if you can provide just a letter saying like I've been dispensing and it's not a specific match, we can still go forward with the PLAR process. But when you're ready to apply to register as an intern, you do need to have the specific confirmation that's you've completed the specific kinds of fits that we set out.
And those fits they can be obtained in Ontario, right? If they're
definitely,
yeah, definitely, yes, yeah.
And you can even do like a combination of international and domestic experience.
And one important thing to note, that this PLAR assessment is not a pass or fail. There's pretty much no fail in the program. There's no failing the program. It will just, if hypothetically, one does very, very poorly in every category, they will be assigned a lot of courses. So that's the only downside, but there's always an option. I mean, you will be taking courses, and then at some point, once you complete the courses, you will become eligible to register. So you don't have to get the perfect result in order to get in.
And then the other thing is also the bridging modules that the committee is assigning, they're off of the NACOR website.
That's right.
And those modules are available at no charge aside from the assessment portion, which is I think $100 a module.
Yep.
So, you know, cost-wise, this is definitely a lot less than enrolling in school. You know, we are trying to make it as accessible as possible for people from outside of Ontario and outside of Canada to seek licensure in Ontario. So we're trying to make sure that the education costs are not a barrier for you.
I would also suggest just to familiarize yourself with the nature of those courses. A lot of information is posted on the NACOR's website. And I think even some preview of modules also available in the content as well. You will be able to get a pretty good idea as to you know, what it entails, those programs, and you know, the courses, the nature of those courses. So if your mind is set on going forward and completing, you can check the NACOR's website to see you know, if you're prescribed a course, what that course is going to look like.
I can just show, so yeah, this is the NACOR website. So if you go to nacor.ca, it's got all of the bridging modules listed under here, and you can also just click right on bridging modules, and that'll take you just to this general website. And it's got the post-test application form here as well. Also could be useful, they have the national competencies. So there's a PDF that shows you what the national competencies for Canadian opticians are. And that's essentially what's being assessed with the CGA and interview. So you can take a look at that just for a refresher and for an idea of what you'll be assessed on. So yeah, there's a lot of useful information on the NACOR website.
Thanks,
All right.
Emma.
So can we go over the what the fees that are required for the
Sure.
application, everything?
Yeah, Anna, did you want me to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So there's for the application, there's a $169.50 committee review fee. So that's charged at the time that you submit your application, and we send that 30-day letter. And then the fee for the assessment that you would do with NACOR. So it's $678 with HST included for the contact lens portion, and then another $678 for the eyeglasses portion. And then, yeah, for the module post-test, it's the $100 plus HST fee for each post-test.
Okay, so is the application fee and the committee review fee, those are same or different?
Yes, yeah, it's the same.
It's the same. Okay. So you said we need to pay for the application, then for the assessment of fittings, eyeglass, and then contact lens, and then 100 for the modules. That's right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
And really the modules at $100 each, that's really based on if you're assigned them as bridging.
Yeah. If you are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it could be as low as nothing, and it could be as high as all of them.
Okay.
But I think, you know, some of your colleagues had challenged it, and there seemed to be a good fit with, I think, the contact lens knowledge, but there was eyeglass bridging being required. It kind of depends on who's applying for the process and what their experiential knowledge is.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So can we do a summary? So firstly, we need to apply, and then there will be a review by the committee. And you will give us a 30-day period to make any changes in the documentation. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what if I do not need to make any changes? Will you start my review early, or will you take?
Yeah. In this case, it's within your right. to waive that requirement. If you say, you know, I submitted all I needed, I don't need any extra time, I don't want to wait 30 days, and I want to be considered as quickly as possible, then yeah, we can move it forward quicker.
All right. So after the review, there will be an analysis of if we have any gap in our knowledge. Is that correct?
Yeah, so after the submission happens, and so we make sure that all the documents that we required for review are in place, that stage 2 is completed, and then it moves on to NACOR for the actual assessment. So then you're doing 2 assessment pieces, which is a multiple choice and an interview, and then NACOR will score you on that, and then it comes back to the college for the final review by the registration committee.
Okay, so we have to give the competency test after we are reviewed. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so then we need to give our competency test, and then you will give us the result. And if there is any gap or anything, you will tell us to do the online bridging. And if there is no gap, then we can register as an intern optician. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
So I have another question here. Do we need to complete 2nd year opticianry program after we complete the PLAR assessment? No, because the PLAR assessment substitutes for the educational piece. If you complete the PLAR assessment and all the requirements of the program, then you're deemed equivalent. So that would be used in place of your Canadian diploma. Then you will be eligible to register as an intern and write your exam.
So really, this is to save you time and money.
Yeah, it will save you time and money. I have another question here. So if things work well and we get our old documents right, is that true that we will be able to apply for the NACOR exam? Yes, so once you submit all the documents that are required, you do the assessment, and then if you're prescribed your bridging courses, you complete the courses, you will be eligible to sit the exam. But I mean, provided that all documents required for eligibilities are in place. So in essence, the difference between the PLAR applicant and the intern applicant, that eligibility to work piece. And that, as I said, this is a very critical piece, and it's better to clarify it with a person who is an immigration expert matter, so that you don't face a situation where, let's say, your study permit expires and you're not eligible to apply for a postgraduate because you withdrew from the program.
Yeah, I think most of us have this doubt about this study permit and all thing, because we are ready to apply, and we will like, if the PLAR goes on very well, and if we are like given the chance to sit the NACOR exam, what will happen to our study permit? And as you said, we need to ask someone who's in the immigration department. He or she can answer that very well, because we are only for study permit. Like if we start
with that study permit, we can register you as an intern for the purposes of writing the exam. But then once you pass the exam, usually it takes about 8 weeks after the exam to get the results. And let's say best case scenario, you passed it on the first attempt, you don't have to retake. Then you're eligible to register as an optician. And for that, that study permit is no good anymore.
Okay. Yeah, so I need to ask someone who's in immigration that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
To work, will that cancel my study permit, and can I go and start working as an optician if I have my license from like a Canadian board of opticians? And if I want to just start working and cancel my study permit, will that work or not? So
yeah, you'll have to find out those nuances and the timing. As Anna said, the good thing is on your study permit, you can apply as an intern optician and write your NACOR exam. But once you're successful at the exam, things are going to change, because you're not on a study permit, you're not a student anymore, and so getting that switched to a work permit possibly The nice thing is there are a lot of companies looking for opticians in Ontario. Some of they're looking for locations out in certain areas, and I think if you're willing to travel a little bit or relocate, I think you'll be more desirable to these employers. And I think they would probably there's a chance that they would work with you to sponsor a work permit. So this is just kind of speed things up. Where you don't have to go through so much schooling and so much cost of schooling. But ultimately, at some point, you're going to have to figure out a work permit with an employer. So I think it's a good discussion for you to have. I think probably, Anna, like there's nothing wrong with them applying for the PLAR and continuing school parallel in case an opportunity comes up and you have a work permit lined up, you can switch over. So I don't want to advise you on your visa stuff because that's out of our scope of expertise. But I think speak to an immigration specialist about how you can navigate the visa route. But here at the college, we're ready to help you if you're trying to shorten the education road.
Yeah, I'll speak to 2-3 immigration lawyer, and I will ask them like if I'm getting my work permit and if someone is like ready to give me the work offer, so can I just cancel my study permit and start working? And I will let you know, well, like whatever they say. Let's say if I'm starting my process, and I think the NACOR is in October this year, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, there's a spring exam in June and then another one is in October.
So it takes 8 weeks after the test to get our result. And as soon as we get our result, are we allowed to go and work if we have the work offer?
So that's a good question.
Hmm.
So Anna,
yeah, then there is an application process as a registered optician. So usually those who sit the exam in October are able to register in January. So you don't have to resubmit the documents that you submitted previously unless they change. Let's say if your immigration document changes, then you submit a new one. But anything else, like let's say everything related to your education and such, you don't have to resubmit it. There is also another piece that is required for registration as an optician, which is not required to register as an intern, which is the vulnerable sector check. That's a criminal record check of the higher category. It's a level 3 check. So that needs to be arranged with your local police department. That could take a bit of time depending on where you're located.
Okay, so after I get my result, I need to wait for the registration to begin. And after
you apply
I apply in January, and that's when I will be registered and I'll be in the system as a licensed optician.
Provided that you have that work permit, because that's the condition of the registration. You have to be eligible to work.
Okay, and I need to register annually, right? Is that correct?
You can register whenever you want. You have 3 years to register.
Okay. And before the registration, I cannot start working as a licensed optician.
As a license, no. But one thing also to remember that intern optician is a transitional registration category. It's not permanent. It's meant to for individuals who completed their study and they're preparing to take their exam. So it's a transition between them being a student and fully licensed optician. So, however, the eligibility to be an intern, it depends also on your success in the exam. Once you successfully pass the exam, you can't stay as an intern.
Okay, I get it. So before the registration, I can work as an intern optician, work offer and my work permit. And after I'm registered, I can start working as a licensed optician.
Yes, but I mean, it's not instant, right? So you wait until you receive the results of your exam, and within that time, you can continue working as an intern optician. And then you have about 60 days once you receive your results to submit your application and register as an optician. After that time period, your intern registration will be canceled.
Okay, good.
You can still apply later within 3 years. It's not going to have any impact on your registration as a licensed optician, but it will interrupt your registration as an intern.
Okay, got it.
So, and then the main thing is, Robin, like once you get your results and you apply, you'll see the college has a public register. It lists all the opticians and student opticians and interns, like if you're registered with us. So it'll show eligible to practice or not. So the moment the college, Emma and Anna, process and approve your application, the public register will reflect that and you're ready to work.
Okay, got it.
I have another question here in the chat. The major concern is about the study permit and the work permit. Apart from that, the documentation and all seems easy. Yeah, it's very straightforward. It's a very accommodating process, which is geared to setting one for success. But this is completely outside of our control and our scope. Transition from study permit to work permit, the terms and conditions attached to each. Also, one important thing to note, maybe when you talk to your immigration consultant, and we see it from practice, sometimes that work permit is issued, but it has limitations on it. And those limitations prohibit people from working in health professions, which makes, in your particular case, it makes it useless, that work permit, because yes, you can work, but you cannot work as an optician. So this is one important factor to take into consideration when you're discussing those issues with your immigration consultant, that not only you need a postgraduate work permit, but also it must allow you to work as a healthcare professional. Now, we can issue a letter that verifies your standing in the process. So the letter could say that this person successfully completed all the requirements of PLAR process and is eligible to apply for registration as an intern optician or a registered optician, and this piece is missing. However, it doesn't have, it helps somewhat, but it's not a guarantee that you will be able to receive the documentation from immigration authorities that you need at that point in time. It just validates your kind of place in the process. But I think, as Fazal mentioned, something that may warrant the issuance of that visa would be your agreement with a potential employer.
Okay, and just one last question. If I'm able to successfully submit all the documents and everything, how long will the time take from starting the review till I get my result of my application and everything? Like, will it be in 1-2 months, or can you give us an approximate time? Like, how long will it take? Starting from the review till I get the result of my application.
So let's assume that all documents are in place. And because we don't have any control on the submission, right? That's completely between you and those, institutions that issue you those documents and letters. We don't know how long that will take, but let's say everything is in place and the review can start today. We schedule we reach out, and the 30 days, right? So then the 30 days start. If you waive, let's say, your right to have that 30-day period and we can proceed immediately, we reach out to NACOR and we say, okay, we have this candidate, that candidate is interested in taking the assessment, and they've scheduled you. Usually they're very good. Usually within a month, you will be able to get both done. And then within a week or two, we will get the results from them. And then the file is ready to go to the committee. Again, that would depend on the availability of the committee. If we can do it within a month, we will try, but there's not always a guarantee, because we need to have we need to have a panel, right? We have to have at least 3 members who would be ready to review that submission. Again, we hope this year's committee is very good. They're very accommodating. They're very committed to get the files reviewed quickly. So I would say probably within 1 to 2 months, we would be able to set up a meeting. Generally, meetings happen quarterly, but this committee is willing to meet more frequently as needed to review the files. So that's probably, let's say, 1 to 2 months. And then, you know, if they need to prescribe any courses, that also depends on how quickly you can complete the courses. And, you know, there's some external factor that have impact on it, you know, what you do, if you have to work, if you continue with schooling, if you have any personal commitments. I see some people completing them fairly quickly, but it all depends on if there are any other factors that may impact your, you know, time commitment to the program. And of course, the number of courses prescribed. I mean, if you're given only 1 course, you can do it very quickly. If you're given like 6, 7 courses, that may take some time.
Okay. And the interview, what about the interview? Will it be online or in person?
Yeah, no, and nothing is in person. Everything is done over Zoom.
Okay, perfect.
Anna, is there any indication about the exam changing? I'm sorry, the
Yes,
interview
yeah,
changing?
there is an indication. And I was just thinking about, you know, briefly to give you an overview of that. So NACOR has a plan of removing the interview and incorporating all aspects of it into a written exam. So the exam obviously will be longer. So I think with the new model, they will allot about 6.5 hours to complete all aspects of the exam. And that would, you know, include eyeglass, contact lens, and, you know, low vision and such. I am a little bit reluctant to explicitly tell you what it's going to look like in the coming months, because it's been a while now that they have been working on this model. It's part of their plan to have it implemented sometime this year. Could be, you know, as early as May or June. But I'm reluctant to give you any definite information because I have not received any specifics from them yet, other than the update. And as I said, it's been a couple of years now. So maybe by the time, you know, your file is ready for review, if you apply, you know, the interview component will be eliminated from that. But I don't have any definite answer as of now.
So no promises, but
no promises, but there is a possibility that at the time you take it, the interview component will not be there.
All right, Anna. So I think you answered all my questions. I don't have any more questions. If any other student has any question, they can contact you, right? If we have
Yes,
any...
of course. Yeah, if you have any other, if there's an afterthought and you think that you wanted to ask something that we did not address, by all means, reach out to us. We are also on social media, and that was on the last page of the slide deck. You can also check the updates with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And by all means, please reach out to the registration department, and we will be happy to address any questions or concerns that you may have.
Emma, can you put up our email address for the registration department into the chat?
Yes.
So, you know, we're always happy to speak to you about any aspect of your journey. You've got a unique journey compared to many students. Hopefully, if the PLAR process is an option for you, we're here to help you. If you just finish the route that you're on, which is the accredited school program, and go through that and then come to us after graduation, again, we're here to help you at that portion of your journey. So reach out to us at any time.
Thank you, Fazil.
Okay. Well, this is great. Emma, thanks for putting on a good presentation. And to all of you on the line, thank you for attending. Robin, thanks a lot for organizing your peers together. And we wish you well, whatever route you take to opticianry. We'll be looking forward to you getting licensed up in the future.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Fazil.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.